This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
What if you could make 1 billion people smarter? Yeah, it's kind of what OpenAI just did. There's usually never been a free AI plan where I actually think it was good enough or reliable enough for everyday business use, but OpenAI just announced that as they quietly kind of announced that free users, so users on the free plan, get unlimited use of GPT 5.6 Luna, a really good and capable model. So previously, free ChatGPT users were usually served a combination of GPT 5.5 and GPT 5.4, depending on the thinking level they chose. Actually, free and low price AI really had a week in the limelight. So between that announcement from OpenAI, there was also a new open weight powerhouse model from Alibaba and a new model from Meta that's basically free if you let them train on your data. So you probably missed some of it. That's because between all the big model releases, there's actually dozens of smaller feature updates each week that can move the needle for your business. And if you miss one or two, it's no big deal. But if you really don't pay attention to the movements that happen between the big splashes, you'll miss out completely. And that's why on Fridays, we bring you the Friday features, our weekly update of the latest AI updates that you can actually use today. These aren't news or leaks or coming soons. These are just new AI features you can use this Friday. So let's get into it. So on today's show, here's what you're going to learn. You're going to learn how you can get essentially free frontier coding, or at least for free 99. If you let a certain company named Meta train on your data, you're going to know what new open source standard there is for better agent orchestration and how basically all the big players in the game got in on it, except for one. And you're going to know the new updates that give free ChatGPT users the best deal in AI right now. Let's jump into it. Welcome to Everyday AI. My name's Jordan Wilson, and we do this every day. This is your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping business leaders like you and me keep up with these AI updates because they quite literally don't stop. I tell you what's good, what's not, how to use it to grow your company and your career. So if that's exactly what you're trying to do me a favor, stranger. Click that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening. And then make sure you go to our website at youreverydayai.com. It's in the show notes, so make sure you go check that out and sign up for our free daily newsletter. We're going to be recapping the highlights from today's show. So if you miss anything, don't worry, it's in there, as well as all the other AI updates you need to know to get ahead. All right, let's get into it and look live. All right, so yeah, if you are watching, if you're listening to this, there's always a video version, not too much that you need to see today, if I'm being honest, but you can always check that out on our website at youreverydayai.com. All right, here we go. Eventually, come on, screen. There we go. Yeah, it's unedited, folks. All right, our first big AI update. If you're creative, you're going to like this one. That's because Adobe just launched a big update to its unified plugin in ChatGPT. Now it can access more than 70 tools from Photoshop, Firefly, Acrobat, Express, Premiere, Lightroom, Illustrator, InDesign, and Stock. So essentially, how does this work? Well, you describe what you want it to do, and it picks the right Adobe tools automatically. So you can edit photo sets, make campaign videos, customize different design templates, turn spreadsheets into PDFs. So it kind of replaces the separate Adobe apps that were available in ChatGPT before. So now it's just one unified app where you don't even have to know, oh, should I be using, Acrobat for this? Should I be using, Lightroom, Photoshop? It doesn't matter. So you just open ChatGPT. If you do have that Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, and you just dump in a bunch of files and say, do all this stuff to them, and it does it. So Adobe is running this play on every chatbot, not just ChatGPT. Its tools are already on Claude and Copilot, but I believe this is the first in terms of these types of features. This is the first one we've seen that's this robust. So who has access? Well, anyone. If you are on ChatGPT, you got it. And there's also many features that are included in this announcement. You don't need a plan to use them. So Yeah, even right now, you don't need an Adobe account to start. Even just using guest mode does give you a broad set of tools immediately, not everything, because signing in with your Adobe account does unlock some of the more generative, heavy AI features, and then being able to sync everything in your Creative Cloud. So it also does work inside of ChatGPT work and Codex. So it's not just on the ChatGPT.com release. So who's this useful? Well, anyone. If you're trying to do something creative, if you are a creative, if you're not creative, but you want to be creative, this is a great way to do it. So obviously, OpenAI and ChatGPT has a fantastic, literally state of the art um, kind of their GPT images too, which is really, really good, but it can't do everything that you might want it to. Right. So in those cases, now you have this tool from Adobe. All right, so that's a good one. But here's a maybe even a better one, maybe for a lot of our audience, because Meta, another pretty big splash here. And there's actually a plan here that I wasn't expecting from Meta, and I don't hate it as one that I'm just like, hey, company, take my data. I don't hate this new pricing from Meta Muse, Spark, and their new Muse Code and Spark 1.2. So here's what's new. Meta released Muse Code, which is their kind of take on Claude Code or Codex. So that's a terminal coding agent right now, powered by its new Muse Spark 1.2 model. So yeah, two different things. It is Muse Code. So that's a terminal coding agent, right? So not like the desktop version of Claude Code or Codex, like the CLI version of Claude Code or Codex. And then the next one is the new model, Muse Spark 1.2. So the pricing here, even if you're paying the full API pricing, pretty good rates in terms of performance. It's $1.25 per million tokens in and $4.25 per million tokens out. But there is a new, what they're calling contributor tier. It's an interesting name for it. That drops that price down to 10 cents in and 20 cents out if you let Meta train on your data. So that's roughly 95% off in exchange for essentially your code, right? So um, at first I'm like, absolutely no one's going to do this. But then I'm like, yeah, like, I don't know, especially if you're starting from scratch, right? Let's just say that you have a personal project or, if you're an indie hacker, indie developer, I'm like, that's actually not a terrible idea, right? Obviously, if you're working with large proprietary, anything enterprise, no one would ever touch that contributor tier. But I'm like, for everyone else that it's more of a hobbyist, it's actually, I think, not that bad of a deal. So every model call, tool run, approval, and edit does get written to a local event log. So if the agent crashes, it can resume where it stopped. So who has access to this? Well, it's open now in beta. You can literally just go run a terminal command and you're off and running. So the new model, though, Muse Spark 1.2 is available inside Muse Code and to any developer through the Meta model API, and it does have a 1 million token context window. So why is this useful? Well, aside from writing code, if you need persistent background sub agents that can work on hard tasks on their own and decide when to report back, it's pretty good for that. The scores so far for what's available on artificial analysis, as an example, pretty good, right? All of a sudden, Meta went from not very relevant for like a full year and a half to now all of a sudden they're in the conversation, right? They're again, Google might change this, any minute now, right? Watch Google. There's been rumors that we're getting something, maybe this week or August 10th, either Gemini 3.5 Pro, or if they skip straight to Gemini 4 Pro, who knows? But Meta is actually ahead of Google, right? Not just in terms of model capabilities, but on pricing as well. So Meta has had a very impressive last month or two. So I think if you're a dev working on a large repo, if you want long running agents, like I said, or if you're an indie dev or a cost sensitive team and you're not necessarily working on, proprietary data, that contributor tier, which is still a funny name for it, not bad, right? We'll see if Muse Code goes for very long, right? I don't know, maybe this is the non-developer in me speaking. I've always been able to do the basics in a terminal, but I feel even the people that have been hardcore, like, hey, I'm a terminal coder, in terms of being a software engineer or dev, I've seen even some of the people that, a year ago were like, I'm never giving up the terminal to being like, the terminal just doesn't make sense anymore. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, you have to start somewhere with, in terms of having a coding agent, but regardless, Meta's showing where they're going to play. They're going to try to compete with Anthropic and Google on token pricing. I don't think that's necessarily OpenAI's game. That is where Anthropic reportedly gets about 80% of its revenue. So this to me looks like a shot at Anthropic, bringing the actual coding agent with Muse Code, extremely cheap and affordable, and the performance is there. All right. Our next piece of AI news, speaking of, very affordable models, we have a new, not quite king of the open hill. It's kind of, actually, let me check that because I know Artificial Analysis just put out a new version of their 4.11 now. So I'm double checking live to see. Okay, yeah. So they are just a little bit behind Kimi K3, but essentially, it is in the same tier. So Alibaba's new open weight Qwen 3.8 Max, it is in the same tier. So it is in that, GPT-5.6, Claude Fable 5, Claude Opus 5, Kimi K3, and Qwen 3.8. That's kind of your top 5 models in the world now. We have 2 open weights models from China in spots 4 and 5. So here is what it is. It is Qwen 3.8 Max, a 2.4 trillion parameter open weight model with a million token context window. It takes text, images, and video. So here's the interesting thing. So it did become the top ranked Chinese model for text only. All right. So for text only, it takes that. And here's the thing, though. There was a report literally hours ago from Reuters that said Alibaba plans to begin charging major enterprise users for Qwen 3.8 Max to charge them a share of their revenue they generate starting next week. So that one's interesting. So who has access right now? Anyone. So if you're working on the hosted API or through Alibaba Cloud Model Studio. So yeah, if you are in Alibaba Cloud accounts, you can use it right now. And the API is OpenAI compatible, so switching is a base URL and model ID change. So it's open weights, although the weights are not out yet, but they did promise them within days of the release. That's essentially what Kimi did as well, and they kind of hit their target deadline for releasing the weights. But when the weights land, obviously you can't like self-host this, right? And again, unless you happen to have a data center, a bunch of GPUs that you just weren't using in your basement, you aren't going to use this, right? It's kind of this, I don't know, fortunate, unfortunate current dichotomy of open weight, open source software, right? I think a year ago, the best open models you could, download if you had a big, expensive Mac, you could do it. You can't anymore, right? These multiple trillion parameter, open weight models, they're not really for running locally anymore unless you literally have a data center. So, why is this useful? Well, it's frontier level capability with open weights. So yeah, if for bigger companies, you can, fine tune these models, or if you're working with a provider, you can fine tune them. So unlike proprietary models, where it's not always as easy to do something like that. So also interesting to note, it did debut number 4 on the front end code arena. So, apparently it has some pretty good front end taste to it as well. So who's going to find this valuable? I think really just large enterprises. That's it. So if you're hedging against, US lab pricing and lock-in, or just, people who are already self-hosting large models, researchers, they are coming out with a 27B version. So if you do have, a couple heavy Mac studios beefed together, you can run it like super slow or something like that. Actually 27B, yeah, you should be able to run it on like the most expensive DGXs. But yeah, again, nice open model, open weight model. So if nothing else, it's pushing the other open models, which are pushing proprietary models, which are pushing prices down, right? That's ultimately what's happening here, because the people who can afford to run something like a Qwen 3.8 Max by running it locally are those Fortune 500 types that may have access to compute. So that is the people who are generally using Anthropic's models would probably be their first customer. OpenAI, Google, maybe as well. So, that's also going to push, in theory, either push down the prices from the major frontier labs or at least keep them in check. So even if you're like, okay, this model isn't going to impact me or my business, we can't run it. Well, you can, right? There's always, providers that you can use. But if anything else, keep models in check. All right, let's go next. Next, we already covered this one in depth on our Wednesday AI Working Wednesday show. That's episode 834, but a ton new with Gemini Notebook. Yes, the tool formerly known as Notebook LM finally got its big glow up that rolled out to all paid users. So this is technically an older update, but we didn't cover it on the show previously. Well, aside from Wednesday, when it was, I think it was just released on Tuesday. We didn't really cover it before because it was only available to Ultra subscribers. So just so you know, on these Friday shows, these are just, tools or updates that are available to your standard, $20 base plans. But now we have that Gemini agentic notebook that is out. So yeah, has a new name. Notebook LM is gone. Gemini Notebook is here, and Gemini Notebook, at least for paid users, is agentic by default. So Google finished rolling out the agentic version of Gemini Notebook, the upgrade to Pro subscribers. So every notebook now gets a secure cloud computer that writes and runs real code against your sources, plus auto-generated charts, spreadsheets, slide decks, and PDFs. So it runs on Gemini 3.5, but it also uses the anti-gravity harness, and it has 100 built-in skills. So think of like code interpreter grounded in your documents. You can also just, start a blank notebook, give it a vague query, and it can also now use the web, although it will confirm with you, right? Because that's the good thing about, previously Notebook LM is it stayed completely grounded in your source data. So now Gemini Notebook can query the web, which is a little bit different for me, right? But it will at least let you know, hey, if you're asking about something that's not in your source material, it will tell you, I don't have the answer. Do you want me to go search the web?
Are you still running in circles trying to figure out how to actually grow your business with AI? Maybe your company has been tinkering with large language models for a year or more, but can't really get traction to find ROI on Gen AI. Hey, this is Jordan Wilson, host of this very podcast. Companies like Adobe, Microsoft, and NVIDIA have partnered with us because they trust our expertise in educating the masses around generative AI to get ahead. And some of the most innovative companies in the country hire us to help with their AI strategy and to train hundreds of their employees on how to use Gen AI. So whether you're looking for ChatGPT training for thousands or just need help building your front-end AI strategy, you can partner with us too, just like some of the biggest companies in the world do. Go to youreverydayai.com/partner to get in contact with our team, or you can just click on the partner section of our website. We'll help you stop running in those AI circles and help get your team ahead and build a straight path to ROI on Gen AI.
Who has access? Anyone with a Gemini Pro account, you've got it now. So this is on the web version only. If you're an Ultra subscriber, you already have this. Free users, you're still going to see Gemini Notebook, right? But you're not going to have these new the code execution or some of these new output formats. So that's the other thing that's new in Gemini Notebook. You can output as a PDF, a doc, different PNGs, right? So essentially before you were a little more limited in what you could actually output. There was, I think about 8 different sources on the right-hand side in the studio panel. Now you can just say, output in these different sources. So I actually did what I thought was a pretty good rundown on Wednesday. So if you do want to check that out, make sure you go do that. Episode 834. Who's going to find this valuable? Literally anyone, right? If you're, a heavy ChatGPT work, Codex, Claude Code, user, right? As an example, these new agentic features are pretty good, right? I'm really looking forward to when Google does introduce, whether it's Gemini 3.5 or Gemini 4 Pro, whichever one, and then seeing those roll out to Notebook LM, I'll be really excited for, because they're technically running the Gemini 3.0 Flash model. So running it agentically, sure, good, but the Gemini 3.5 Flash model is not that great. So yeah, it's got like a 30, what is it? No, that's Gemini 3.6 Flash. Come on. Where's my Gemini 3 Flash? Let's see where we have it. It is okay, a 52 on the artificial analysis. So not that good. So it is below, or no, sorry, it is at the same level as GPT-5.6 Luna. So okay, from that respect, it's okay-ish, right? So if you think that OpenAI has 3 tiers, they have Sol, Terra, and Luna. Right now, Google's best tier is the lowest tier for OpenAI's ChatGPT. So take that for what it's worth. So not the best model in the world that's powering it, especially when you're a paid user, right? We're going to talk about the free kind of upgrade for GPT-5.6 Luna, which I think is great for free users, right? But for being a paid user right now, it's kind of not a great time to be a Gemini first company. But I will expect Google any day, any minute, any week now to come out with a good 3.5 Pro or Gemini 4 Pro, and I hope it gets rolled out to Gemini Notebook. All right, next we have a new open standard for agent plugins, and this is pretty cool. So here's what's new, and yes, it's available now. There's a new open vendor neutral standard for packaging AI agent extensions. So now it's a one plugin, a folder with a plugin JSON file, bundling an agent skill and MCP servers. And right now it works across ChatGPT, Codex, Cursor, Google, GitHub, Copilot, VS Code, and others. So essentially, you can build an agent plugin once and run it anywhere. So this is a little confusing, but let me just break it down and hopefully this is like 99% correct, because I haven't actually gone out and built this because it's only in a couple hours old. So previously, think you have skills, right? And skills are essentially just a bunch of text files in a folder, right? And then you also have things like plugins, and plugins are, multiple skills or a skill in an app together, right? And then you have like JSON files. So it's kind of like the new agent plugins. And then, you have your skills are in markdown files, right? It's essentially pulling all of these things together, but in an open standard, right? So that's great, because you had the skills MD, skills are pretty universal, right? Because they are just text files, they're markdown files. So those are pretty universal. Also inside the agent plugins, sorry, I forgot to mention this, it's MCPs as well. So it's essentially stacking, your skills, your MCP servers, your JSON files, all in one package. So this is nice, because before you would have to load all of these things in individually, which takes a lot of time. And when, it's slightly different across different providers, you don't always have that from a business strategy perspective. You get a little locked in at times, which you don't want. So this is why it was great to see almost every single big name instantly support the agent plugins, right? Anthropic, obviously not on the list. I don't know why Anthropic just won't get on board with this. Obviously they have their Claude.md, right? But it's like, okay, Anthropic, just change it to agent MD, like literally every other company, right? Google, Microsoft, Cursor, OpenAI, everyone else is doing this. Anthropic, get on board. It's just making I think it's slowing the pace of AI down. I think it's maybe a bad look on Anthropic. Like, are you just trying to lock people in, right? Maybe, I don't know, maybe they are, maybe that's part of their business strategy. But for me, right, I love kind of having this open new agent plugin standard, because it does make it easier for businesses. The other thing too is, yes, in most cases, I think it's best for companies to kind of pick one AI kind of operating system and stick there. But, maybe your finance team needs a different one, right? Maybe 90% of your company can be on, ChatGPT work, but maybe 10% of your company needs to be on Gemini for whatever reason, right? And in this case, when you have these agent plugins, it's very easy to have that standard and to be able to transfer that over. But, if Anthropic doesn't get on board, it's not going to be as easy for them. Anyways, so OpenAI announced this, but it's not OpenAI's. So Vercel initiated it, as well as Amazon, Anysphere, which is Cursor, GitHub Copilot, Microsoft, etc. So um, who has access right now? Well, anyone. So you can just build this, right? You can just point your coding agent to this, the website. The website is just agent-plugins.org, right? All of the documentation is there. So this is just an easy way, especially if your team is becoming more agentic in your work, right? You have multiple MCP files, you have multiple skills, you have JSON files holding it all together. It's just an easier way to port this across server to server. All right, or sorry, service to service. All right, next one. Speaking of being open, right? It's a big week for open and free. This one was not expecting this. Cloudflare announced their open source Cloudflare OS. It's an internal AI workspace that it built to actually run its own company. So they essentially said, we built this to run our company so everyone else can have it as well. So essentially, every employee gets a browser-based agent workspace with governed access to internal systems, research, documents tied to live data, automated workflows, and shareable internal apps with, well, no developers really needed. So thousands of Cloudflare's own employees across every team already use it daily, according to the company. So seems pretty battle tested, not just like some demo software. So it competes technically, right, with ChatGPT work or Claude Cowork or Gemini Enterprise, but it's free, open source, and runs in your own Cloudflare account instead of the kind of per seat SaaS. So who has access right now? Well, it's open source. So anyone. So you can go download the repo. You do obviously need a Cloudflare account to run it because it deploys into your own account using your own access policies and integrations. But your IT team, essentially, yeah, they'll probably need to help you a little bit. But there is also a managed version through Cloudflare, plus implementation partners that are coming, but no date is given yet. So why is this useful? Well, you can just essentially bring your own model and have an open source agentic platform to work on. So yes, this isn't free to use. It's just a free operating system. Think of it that way, but you still have to bring your apps, AKA you still have to bring your own model through the Cloudflare AI model gateway. But there's, you can do spend caps and you're not locked in. So think of it more like that. Think of it, and there are other versions of this, right? There are versions of open versions of, desktop agents, right? But this is from Cloudflare, one of the literally biggest names in the internet ever. So a very trusted source. So, a lot of companies run their, web operations through Cloudflare. So trusted name. Love this because it is giving people more options. Again, I think more options, more modularity in being able to build, the better for people involved. Although for me, I'm still going to stick to my codex because it's just part of my everyday workflow. All right. Next, yes, this model has been going absolutely viral. It is Minimax H3. So this is a new video model, and Minimax did just release the weights for H3, and it became the first open model to ever top a major AI video ranking, as it's number 1 in video editing on artificial analysis and number 2 in text to video. So artificial analysis called it the strongest open weights model by far. That's why this thing has been blowing up online. If you've seen any really good AI video over the last couple of days, like on Twitter or whatever, it's probably Minimax, especially. And the reason why you're probably seeing it is because obviously with this being an open weights Chinese model, there's no copyright restrictions. I don't know why it's been at least on my feed, it's been these 15-second Seinfeld clips, of people talking about AI or 15-second clips from The Office, people talking about AI, and they're obviously really good, right? Because it's just ripping the copyright. It's, Michael Scott's face and Michael Scott's voice, but talking about, agentic swarms or something like that. So here's a little bit more about the model. So the model reads text, images, video, and audio as one context, and it outputs 4 to 15-second clips at up to 2K with native stereo audio. So that's if you're using their hosted service, but if you are using the actual downloadable version, the quantized version, you're not going to be able to run the 2K resolution. It is going to be a standard definition, and it's going to take a while, right? So let's just say you have like a 16 or 32 gigabyte MacBook. Let's just say that. Yeah, it's going to take you maybe 20 or 30 minutes or longer to make a 15-second clip. But the thing is, well, it's an option, right? Now we literally have models that are the state of the art, right? So, number one, number two, and the two big categories, and you can download them and use them for free, right? So absolutely wild world we're living in. And for the most part, you cannot tell that they're AI videos, right? Like obviously you can, because if Jerry Seinfeld is losing his mind over an agentic swarm, obviously, right? But I mean, everything else about it, it looks real, it sounds right. Jerry Seinfeld's voice, how he does his voice, he throws it all over the place. It gets it right, it nails it, right? Obviously, every once in a while you're gonna get some bad generations, but the stuff I've seen online, I'm like, this is fairly impressive. But also, to me, it's extremely scary because it takes like 15 seconds. Yeah, like campaign videos, right? This is going to absolutely wreck the upcoming US election, because here's the thing, it's out in the wild. So it's not like any amount of new US policy is going to stop this thing. So yeah, I can see this thing causing a ton of trouble in a couple of months with the elections coming up. So who has access? So yeah, the hosted version, anyone, anywhere, right? Through the Minimax API. So yeah, you don't need the fat, $10,000 computer to, eke out a 15-second video for that one. So you're paying the API prices, but the downloadable weights are on Hugging Face, but the license excludes right now the US, EU, UK, and South Korea from running it locally. So if you're in those regions, it says they're API only. It seems like most people are skirting around those restrictions somehow. All right. So why is it useful? Well, it's one model that can replace a lot. So it does text to video, image to video, first, last frame, subject reference, motion reference. So it is much more than just a video generator. There's a lot that's going on under the hood. All right. Last but not least, there is a new version of GPT-5.6 Soul. So yes, OpenAI made a pretty notable update to its flagship model. Here's what's new. Well, the big one is OpenAI made the free ChatGPT the best a free AI has literally ever been, because now you have unlimited generations, even if you do not have a paid plan on GPT 5.6 Luna. So again, kind of the tiers, GPT 5.6 Soul is the best, GPT 5.6 Terra is in the middle, and then you have GPT 5.6 Luna, still a very good, capable model. Actually, GPT 5.6 Luna is pretty much on par with Claude Sonnet 5. So just if you need a comparison. So for paid users, OpenAI merged the instant and thinking models into one. So now you have a slider that controls how much reasoning it puts into each answer. So if you're on ChatGPT.com, it's going to seem a lot more familiar if you were using the desktop version. So along with this, OpenAI claims 68% fewer responses containing factual errors versus GPT 5.6 Instant on areas such as financial, medical, and legal prompts. So Zal just dropped. It's new. So who has access? Well, literally 1 billion users. Yes. So 1 billion people have better models altogether. So this is not only free plans getting unlimited GPT 5.6 Luna, which I still don't understand how that's possible, right? How is it possible that, like, okay, let's just say Anthropic, right? Let's just say for whatever reason, obviously Opus 5 and Fable 5 are like, 1A, 1B, or 1B, 1C, depending on how you look at it with GPT 5.6 Soul. But after that, right, it's GPT 5, Sonnet 5, right? On Sonnet 5, you on a paid plan, right? In your 5-hour window, you might get 10 to 20 prompts, right? On a paid plan. So now on a free plan on ChatGPT, you get unlimited. So this, again, I know I sound like a broken record, and there's plenty of stories, chronicling this online. This has been a bad couple of weeks for Anthropic, right? Between all these new open models coming out, DeepSeek comes out, essentially cheap, like free, right? OpenAI, we talked about this last week. They essentially made their GPT 5.6 Luna essentially free. So yeah, it hasn't been a good couple of weeks for Anthropic. So we'll see where their number lands. They're expected to go public maybe in like as soon as 2 months. So that one should be interesting to see. So who's going to find it valuable? Why is this useful from OpenAI? Well, a couple things. Well, there's no more having to choose between instant and thinking for paid users. It's just one model with a dial. And then obviously the unlimited free chat, absolutely bonkers, right? This is, I think, OpenAI starting to inch closer to, being able to provide this level of intelligence to, everyone in the world, which it seems like, that's what their goal is, bringing AGI to the masses, right? I still cannot get over, like, when I read that, when I saw this announcement, I'm like, this can't be right. Like, I'm like, unlimited GPT 5.6, because usually free users, right? Because it's all about compute, usually free users are one tier below, right? Which is how it was, yesterday, right? Free users were on GPT 5.5, and that's how it's usually been, because free users make up the majority of that billion users. So OpenAI has, in terms of post-training and inference, they've cracked something, right? I had kind of my recursive self-improvement show. It's like, yeah, we no one has full RSI, but it seems like OpenAI's got something figured out. The fact that they lowered the price of GPT 5.6 Luna by 80%, and now they are giving a frontier level model away to 1 billion people, unlimited for free, doesn't make sense. All right. Anyways, I'll stop losing my marbles and let you get to go using all of these new AI features. I hope this was helpful. If so, let me know. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Then go to youreverydayai.com. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you Monday and next week for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.